My name is Tiana. I am 28 years old, and the night my husband threw me out of our apartment, I left with a backpack, a dying phone, and a piece of plastic I was never supposed to use. It started with dishes. It always starts with something small, something stupid you could laugh about in a healthy marriage. A sink full of plates, a missed bill, a text he didn't like. But by the time you get to the part where a man is standing in the doorway telling you to get out of his house, the dishes are just background noise to all the things he thinks about you, but never said out loud until now. "You know what?" Marcus snapped, slamming his beer bottle down so hard the glass rang. "I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you." I was still in my work blazer, half wet from the rain I'd walked through to get home because I'd missed the bus. My shoes squeaked on the hardwood, my laptop bag still cutting into my shoulder. I hadn't even taken off my bra yet, and already we were here. "I asked you to pay the electric bill," he yelled, waving his phone in my face. "It's past due. Again. What are you even doing with your paycheck?" "I did pay it," I said, reaching for my own phone. "They must not have processed it yet. I can." "Oh, right," he laughed. That low, cruel laugh he saves for when he wants me to feel stupid. "Little Miss Budget Queen. The woman who grew up broke thinks she's a financial expert now, just like your daddy, huh?" There it was. My father. He knew exactly where to hit. "My father wasn't reckless," I said quietly. "He did the best he was a broke dreamer," Marcus cut in, talking over me. "And you worship him like some kind of money saint. All you got from him is bad habits and a cheap little card you keep in your wallet like a shrine." His eyes flicked to my purse sitting on the counter. He'd seen me pull the old card out before, running my thumb over the faded numbers, like a rosary. I never swiped it, and never could. It was my dad's bank card, the one he'd had when he died 2 years ago. The bank sent me paperwork, but I couldn't bring myself to go in. Grief made everything heavy. I kept the card because it made me feel like he was still there. It was stupid, maybe, but it was mine. "Marcus, this isn't about my dad," I said. "This is about a late payment." I can call them." He stepped closer, the smell of beer and cologne sharp in my nose. "No, Tiana," he hissed. "This is about the fact that I'm carrying this marriage on my back while you play around with that little admin job and act like you're contributing. I'm done." Something in his voice made me go still. "I pay half the rent," I said. "I pay the groceries." Half?" he snorted. "You pay what I let you pay. You only have a job because I told my boy at the firm you needed something." He jabbed a finger into my shoulder. "You think you'd even have an apartment like this if it wasn't for me? If it wasn't for me combining our finances, fixing your credit, keeping you from overdrafting every other week?" My face burned. The worst part was that some of that used to be true. When we got together, I did have overdrafts. I did have late payments. I was 23, grieving my dad, working 2 part-time jobs and drowning. Marcus came in like a rescue boat with his neat spreadsheets and his big talk about building a future. He talked about joint accounts like it was romance. What I didn't understand back then was that for some men, joint means mine, but I'll let you use it. Now, almost everything was in his name. The lease, the car, the main checking account. My paycheck slid into an account where I was technically an authorized user, not an owner. It was one of those things you swear you'll fix later when you're not tired, when you're not in love. "You're being dramatic," I said, swallowing hard. "We can talk about this in the morning. You've been drinking. I'm not doing this right now." "Good," he snapped, "because there is no this anymore." He walked to the front closet and yanked it open. My heart started pounding as he grabbed my old black backpack, the one I used in college, and started stuffing my things into it. Wallet, keys, my work badge. He moved with a terrifying, efficient calm, like he'd thought about this before. "Marcus, what are you doing?" My voice came out higher than I wanted. He didn't answer. He walked to the bedroom, came back with my folded sweatpants, a t-shirt, a pair of jeans. He tossed them on top of my bag like trash. "Marcus, stop. Put my things back. We're not doing this." He stood up straight and looked at me. Really looked at me. For a moment, I thought maybe he'd soften. He didn't. "I'm done being chained to your poverty mindset," he said. "Your sad little traumas. Every time I try to take us to the next level, you get scared. Don't take that loan, Marcus. Don't invest in that, Marcus. We shouldn't use my father's info for that application, Marcus." He mimicked my voice in a cruel falsetto. "You know what? You don't get a say anymore. You're dead weight." The words hit harder than any slap. Dead weight. My throat closed. "You're talking about me like I'm a bill you can cancel." He walked to the door and opened it. The hallway light spilled into the apartment, cold and yellow. "You are a bill I can cancel," he said. And I just did. Rain roared outside somewhere far below. Our building always sounded like it was inside a storm cloud. I stood there, numb, as he picked up my backpack and shoved it against my chest. "Take your little pity job. Take your daddy's card. Take your dramatics." His voice dropped. Vicious now. "But get out of my house, Tiana. Go figure your life out somewhere else." "Marcus, please," I whispered. "I have nowhere to go. My mom's in another state. My friends." "Not my problem," he said. "You wanted to be independent so bad? Congratulations. You're independent. Goodbye." He stepped back and, in the most brutal gesture of my life, closed the door. I stood in the hallway, hearing the latch click, the chain slide into place, the television turn back up on the other side. The life I'd built with this man was now just drywall and a locked door. For a long moment, I didn't move. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Somewhere upstairs, a baby cried. The building smelled like someone's cooking onions and bleach. I looked down at myself. Blazer, work slacks, rain-speckled flats. My phone in my hand showed 5% battery and no missed calls from anyone who could save me. He really did it, I thought. He really threw me out. My eyes burned, but the tears wouldn't fall yet. Shock held them back. I adjusted the backpack on my shoulder. It felt too light. I dug around inside, half hoping he'd accidentally packed something useful. All I found were my folded clothes and my wallet. I opened it with shaking hands. $17 in cash, my ID, my work badge, and behind it, tucked in the little clear slot where most people keep family photos, the card. My father's old debit card, navy blue, the bank logo half scratched off, his name in faded silver letters, Derek Ayers. When he died, the bank had sent me a letter about estate matters. I'd shoved it in a drawer. Every time I tried to deal with it, grief swallowed me. So I did what a lot of daughters do. I kept one thing of his close. A hat, a watch. In my case, a useless card. I ran my thumb over the numbers just like always. "You really left me with nothing, huh?" I whispered, not sure if I meant my husband or God or life in general. Then a colder, more practical thought cut through the fog. Not nothing. There might be something. Not a lot, I told myself. Maybe $20, $50. Enough to get a motel for one night, or at least a hot meal and a cab to a friend's couch. Enough to give me time to figure out what to do tomorrow. My phone buzzed in my hand. 4% battery now. No new messages. I looked at the elevator, then down the hall toward the stairwell that led to the street. The bank branch we used was 4 blocks away, lit up late for their extended hours. I knew because I'd walked past it 100 times, holding this card and thinking, not today. I'll deal with it later. Later had arrived. I put the card back in my wallet, zipped my bag, and squared my shoulders. "Okay, Daddy," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "If there's anything left out there with your name on it, I need it now." And with my whole life suddenly reduced to a backpack and a plastic relic, I walked out into the rain and headed for the bank. The bank is only 4 blocks away, but in the rain it feels like a mile. By the time I push open the glass doors, my blazer is soaked through and my curls are frizzing at the edges. The lobby is too bright, the air too cold. It smells like printer ink and floor cleaner, like every long afternoon I ever spent here with my dad while he argued politely with managers about small overdraft fees and missing deposits. Back then, I used to sit in those plastic chairs and swing my legs, listening to him say things like, "I know it's just $30 to you, sir, but it's 3 hours of my time on a ladder." He always smiled when he said it. He never yelled. My father believed in being respectful even when the world was disrespectful back. Now I'm standing in the same lobby with his card in my hand, trying not to shake. There are only two tellers open. A bored-looking guy in his 20s scrolling on his phone between customers, and a woman with braids pulled into a bun, counting rolled coins. The guy doesn't look up when I walk in. The woman does. Her eyes flick to my wet clothes, my backpack, then to the card I'm clutching like a lifeline. "Next," she calls gently. I walk up to her window, suddenly hyper-aware of how tired I must look. "Hi," I say, my voice thinner than I want it to be. I need to check the balance on an account. I have the card, but I've never actually used it." "Okay, no problem." Her voice is warm, professional. She takes the card and turns it over. "Do you have your ID with you?" "Yes." I slide my license under the glass. For a second, I'm afraid she's going to look at the name on the card, Derek Ayers, and the name on my ID, Tiana Ayers, and shake her head. Tell me I'm not allowed. Tell me to come back with paperwork I don't have. Instead, her eyebrows lift just a little. "Mr. Ayers is my father," I say quickly. "He passed away 2 years ago. I know it's probably closed. I just need to see if there was anything left in there before it was shut down. I was his only child. I never came in to deal with it. I know I should have. My throat tightens. Grief is weird, you know? Something soft flickers in her eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," she says quietly. "Let me pull it up and see what we've got, okay? Have you ever been listed on the account before? As an authorized user or beneficiary?" "I don't think so," I say. "He did everything old school. Paper bills, cash envelopes. I just found this card when we were cleaning out his things. I kept it, I don't know, for comfort, I guess." She gives me a small, understanding smile, then turns to her screen and starts typing. The click of her nails on the keys is weirdly loud. My heart drums in my ears while I pretend to look at the pamphlets lined up on the counter. Home loans, savings accounts, retirement planning. All the things Marcus loved to brag about understanding better than me. For a few seconds, nothing happens. Then the teller goes very still. Her eyes narrow at the monitor. She taps a few more keys. Her posture changes, no longer casual, but alert. She glances at my ID again, then at the card. Something shifts in the air. My stomach drops. Is everything okay?" I ask. She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she presses a button under the counter. Not the panicked way someone hits an alarm, but a deliberate, practiced tap. "Could you give me just a moment, Miss Ayers?" she says. Her tone is still polite, but there's a different weight to it now. "I need to get my branch manager to help with this account. It has some special notes on it." "Notes?" My hands go cold. Did I do something wrong by bringing the card? No, she says quickly. "You did the right thing coming in. Just hang on 1 second, okay?" She steps away from her station and disappears through a door marked "Employees Only." The bored guy at the other window glances up, curious, then goes back to his phone. I stand there, completely alone in bright fluorescent light, dripping onto the mat, clutching the edge of the counter like it can hold me up. Special notes. That could mean anything. Overdrafts, fraud alerts, a closed account with no funds and warning that the estate is in collections. For a second, dizziness sweeps over me. What if there's nothing? What if I walked all the way here in the rain, watched my marriage implode, and all I get is confirmation that at every stage of my life, I am broke? I'm about to sit down before my knees fold when the office door opens again. A man in his 50s walks out with the teller. Dark suit, no tie, wire rim glasses, manager written all over him. "Miss Ayers?" he asks, looking straight at me. "Yes." My voice comes out as a croak. I clear my throat. "Yes, that's me." He offers a professional, careful smile. "I'm Daniel Green, the branch manager. Would you mind stepping into my office for a moment? There are some matters regarding your father's account that would be better discussed in private." My pulse kicks up. Private is never just, "You have $7 left." "Okay," I say, because what else is there to say? I follow him through the door into a small office lined with file cabinets and framed photos of community events. He gestures to a chair. I sit on the edge of it, backpack still on, ready to run if he tells me something I can't handle. The teller slips in behind us and closes the door quietly, then takes a seat in the corner. It feels like a meeting, like an intervention. "Mr. Green" sits down behind his desk and folds his hands. "First of all," he says gently, "let me also say I'm very sorry for your loss, Miss Ayers. I can see from our records that your father was a customer here for over 20 years. "Yeah," I say, my voice small. "He was loyal, even when you all hit him with those insufficient funds fees," he said. "Switching banks was more trouble than it was worth." I try to laugh. It comes out broken. A real smile touches his face for a second, then it fades, and the professional mask is back. "When you handed the card to our teller, it pulled up your father's profile," he explains, "along with several internal alerts. As part of our policy, when there is a deceased client with unresolved estate matters, we are required to verify the status of the legal beneficiary. That's why we wanted to speak with you privately." Estate matters? The words feel too big in my mouth. I thought this was just a checking account. "A regular one." He tilts his head. "Did your father ever mention setting something up for you? A POD designation? That stands for payable on death, or any kind of small trust?" I shake my head slowly. "No. My dad worked maintenance at the university. He did side jobs fixing people's air conditioners. He didn't have estate money." I put my hands up, embarrassed. Honestly, I thought maybe he forgot to cancel this card, and there might be $50 in there. Enough for a motel room tonight. The teller in the corner gives me a look that's almost protective. Mr. Green glances at my wet clothes again, at my backpack. He understands more than I've said out loud. "I see," he says softly. "Well, there are a few things you should know." He turns his screen so that it's facing me, then taps a few keys. My father's name fills the monitor, along with a lot of numbers I don't understand. My eyes dart to the line that says "Status Deceased." Something pinches in my chest. "Your father had a primary checking account here." "Yes," Mr. Green says. "That account was linked to this card." He taps the plastic lying on his desk. "But about a year before his passing, he also opened a secondary account and designated it in our system as a beneficiary transfer account." "A what?" I whisper. "It's a simple arrangement some of our clients use when they don't have formal wills," he explains. "The funds in that account are not part of the general estate. They don't go through probate. They transfer directly to the named beneficiary upon proof of death. In this case," he clicks something. A new window pops up. "The named beneficiary is you, Miss Tiana Ayers. Sole beneficiary." I stare at the screen. My name looks unreal next to my father's. "But I never knew about this," I say. "No one called me. No one sent a letter. I thought everything he had went to medical bills and overdue rent." Mr. Green exhales slowly. "We did send letters," he says carefully, "to this address." He reads out the apartment Marcus and I share. They were never returned, so our system assumed they were received. We also have notes indicating that 6 months after your father's passing, a Mr. Marcus Carter called and identified himself as your husband. He stated that you were too emotional to handle financial matters and asked about the process of accessing the funds on your behalf. My skin goes cold. "What? The teller's eyebrows shoot up. We informed him, Mr. Green continues, that we could not release any information or funds to anyone other than you. We advised him that you would need to come in personally with identification and a copy of your father's death certificate. After that call, there were 2 more attempts from the same number, asking if there was another way to gain access. Those calls were flagged and escalated. We placed additional restrictions on the account to prevent potential fraud. My head is spinning. Marcus knew. Marcus knew there was something here. Maybe he didn't know how much, but he knew enough to harass the bank, to ask if there was another way. He knew there were letters coming to our address, and somehow they never reached my hands. I see him, in my mind, standing over the trash can with a handful of mail, tossing anything that looked complicated or stressful into the bin before I got home from work. Grief hadn't kept me from the bank. Marcus had. I gripped the arms of the chair. So there is money in that account? Yes, Mr. Green says. This time his professional calm cracks just a little. There is. How much? I ask. The word scrapes its way out of my throat. He studies my face for a second, like he's preparing me for impact. Then he swivels the monitor a few more degrees so I can see the number clearly. It feels like the world tilts. Because there, under available balance, is an amount that doesn't fit with the man who wore the same work boots for 10 years. $186,492.37. I blink. Recount the digits. $186,492.37. My breath leaves my body in a sharp, helpless laugh. That's not right, I stammer. My dad didn't have that kind of money. He had a jar of quarters on top of the fridge. He fixed people's dishwashers for cash. Mr. Green nods slowly. Your father also had a small life insurance policy through his job, he explains. And, according to these notes, he received a workers' compensation settlement after a fall on a job site. Instead of spending it, he brought the check here and opened this account. He told our previous manager, he checks a note, that he wanted to make sure his baby girl had something if anything ever happened to him. His voice softens. He was very clear that the funds were for you alone, not for the spouse, not for family decisions, for you. Something in me cracks wide open. I see my dad's tired smile, his rough hands handing a check across the same counter. His voice low and serious, saying, "It's for my girl." Tears blur my vision. The teller slides a tissue box across the desk without a word. I take one, press it to my eyes, and let a few hot tears fall. Not the humiliated tears Marcus loves. These are different. These are for a man who planned further ahead for me than I ever knew. I don't understand, I whisper. All this time I've been scraping, stressing over every bill, letting my husband talk to me like on a charity case. My voice breaks. And I had this? Access to the funds was always contingent on you coming in, Mr. Green says gently. We can't force a beneficiary to claim what's theirs. But yes, this has been here, waiting for you. The bank's reaction shocked me, but not just because of the number on the screen. It's the way the teller's eyes shine with quiet anger when she hears about the phone calls from Marcus. It's the way Mr. Green's jaw tightens when he reads the notes aloud. It's the way he leans forward and says in a low, measured voice, "Miss Ayers, I need to be very clear about something. Your husband has no legal right to these funds. None. He cannot access them. He cannot claim them. And given his attempts to do so, if you feel unsafe or pressured, we can document that for you." For the first time since that door closed in my face, I don't feel small. I feel dangerous. I don't feel unsafe, I say slowly, wiping my face. I feel informed. I straighten up in my chair. What do I need to do, right now, tonight, to put this money fully in my name and out of his reach, permanently? Now it's Mr. Green's turn to smile. Not the polite bank smile, but something more satisfied. We'll start, he says, by closing the old card and issuing you a new one in your name only. Then we're going to open an account that he doesn't even know exists. I take a deep breath. Marcus threw me out of his house, thinking he'd finally cut me loose of everything. Money, stability, dignity. He had no idea that the one card he mocked, the one relic of the man he said ruined me, was about to give me something he could never control. Options. Options. The word sits in my chest like a new organ, still tender, not quite real yet. Mr. Green prints something and stands. I'm going to have our compliance officer join us, he says. Given the prior attempts to access this account, it's best we document everything carefully from the start. Is that all right with you? For the first time all night, I don't feel like I'm the one being evaluated. Yes, I say. Please. A few minutes later, there's a soft knock, and another woman steps in. Early 40s, crisp navy suit, no-nonsense bun. She carries a thin laptop and a legal pad. Her badge says, Compliance El Nguyen. Ms. Ayers, she says, taking the seat beside Mr. Green. Her voice is calm, steady. I'm Lynn. I handle escalations on accounts with potential fraud or unauthorized activity. I've reviewed the notes on your father's profile and the recent contact attempts regarding his funds. I'd like to walk you through what we see on our end, if that's okay. Go ahead, I say. My hands are still trembling, but now it's from adrenaline, not fear. She logs in, fingers moving fast. The glow from her screen reflects in her glasses. First, she says, I want to underscore what Daniel already told you. This account and its associated instruments are what's called a beneficiary-only structure. Your father specifically signed a POD agreement and an addendum that reads, she clicks something, then reads slowly, almost like she wants me to hear each word. For my daughter, Tiana Ayers, and for no one else. Funds are not to be pledged, shared, or assigned as collateral for any spouse, partner, or third party. In case of dispute, the bank is to treat my daughter's instructions as final. She looks up. Your father was very clear, Miss Ayers. My throat tightens. That's his voice, right there in legal language. Not the tired man on the couch, not the hospital patient, the version of him that shows up when things get serious. Focused, deliberate, stubborn on my behalf, for my daughter and for no one else. I swallow hard. Okay, I whisper, so how does my husband fit into this? Lynn nods once, like she's been waiting for that question. About 6 months after your father's passing, she says. We have a logged call from a number we now see as associated with your husband, Mr. Marcus Carter. I'm going to paraphrase, but the transcript notes that he identified himself as your spouse and said you were not in a state to handle financial details. He asked if there were any death benefits or cash-out options tied to your father's accounts. My jaw clenches. I can practically hear his tone in my head, reasonable, put upon, the hero cleaning up my mess. We informed him, she continues, that we could not discuss protected beneficiary funds with anyone but you, even if he was legally married to you. He pushed back and used a phrase that concerned us. He referred to your father's funds as marital assets that should be considered part of our household financial strategy. Lynn's mouth flattens. That's not how this works, at all. She scrolls. 2 weeks later, there's a second call. She says, same number. This time he asked if there was a way to consolidate any remaining funds from your father's accounts into a joint account he had with you. He mentioned being in the process of applying for a line of credit and said, quote, if we can show more liquid assets, the bank will move faster. The room gets very small. He tried to use my father's money to make himself look richer, I say slowly. For a loan. It appears so, Lynn says. The notes say the representative again refused and reminded him that the account could only be accessed by you with proper documentation. After that, we see a third attempt. This one is flagged as escalated. She clicks again. Her eyes flicker over the text. In that call, she says, he suggested that since you were married and your finances were intertwined, the bank should treat you as a single financial unit and allow him to manage the funds on your behalf. He mentioned that you were not great with money and that he handled all the grown-up decisions. Heat flashes under my skin. I grip my knees to keep from shaking. I can hear him, word for word, the way he jokes to friends. Tiana's sweet, but numbers aren't her thing. She'd still be overdrafting if it wasn't for me, saying it loud enough so I have to laugh too, or else I'm too sensitive. Let me guess, I say, my voice coming out tighter than I intend. He didn't mention that I have a full-time job, or that I paid off my student loans by myself. Lynn's lips curve, just slightly. That was not in the notes, she says dryly. What is in the notes is that after that call, the representative escalated the account to my department. We added a clear internal instruction: do not, under any circumstances, allow spouse or third party to access, redirect, or pledge funds. Require in-person ID verification of named beneficiary only. So you protected it, I say. We enforced your father's wishes, she corrects gently. But there's one more piece you should know about. She navigates to another screen. A few months after those calls, she says, there was an application for a personal line of credit that crossed our desk from another institution. As part of their due diligence, they reached out to verify claimed assets. Your husband had listed an inherited fund under your married name as part of his net worth statement. My stomach flips. Wait, I say. He told some other bank he had access to my inheritance? He listed a 6-figure inherited reserve with your father's surname in parentheses, Lynn says. They contacted us as the purported custodial institution. We informed them there was no such accessible asset in his name, and that any beneficiary designations were locked to you. They did not give us details about the outcome of his application, but our internal note from that day reads, spouse attempted to characterize beneficiary-only funds as marital collateral. Clarified structure, reaffirmed restrictions. For a second, the room blurs. I'd seen him, those months, pacing the living room on the phone, talking about leverage and opportunities, and this line of credit could change everything. I'd asked, nervously, if taking on more debt was smart when we were already feeling squeezed. He'd rolled his eyes and told me I was thinking too small, that I didn't understand how real money worked. All the while, he was parading my father's invisible safety net, something I didn't even know existed, like a prop in his own little financial theater. A slow, cold anger starts in my chest and spreads outward. He threw away letters that were meant for me, I say quietly. He called you and tried to get access behind my back. He used my father's name in some application and told another bank it was ours. And then tonight, he looked me in the face and called me dead weight, like I'm the one dragging him down. My voice doesn't shake anymore. It hardens. He didn't just lie to me, I say. He tried to steal from me, from my dad. Lynn folds her hands on the desk. I can't speak to your marriage, she says carefully, but from a compliance standpoint, the pattern we see is concerning. A spouse intercepting financial mail, making repeated attempts to access restricted funds, and misrepresenting those funds as jointly controlled assets. That's not just morally questionable. It brushes up against fraud. The word hangs in the air. Fraud. If Marcus were here, he'd laugh it off. Call it optimizing or doing what everyone does. But hearing it from a woman in a navy suit with authority behind her makes it feel as serious as it really is. What happens now? I ask. Now, Lynn says, we tighten things even further. We place an explicit note on your profile documenting that you have just become aware of these funds tonight, that you reported likely mail interception, and that there have been prior attempts by your spouse to treat your beneficiary account as collateral. That way, if he ever tries to come through a side door again, through another branch, another rep, another institution, we have a clear, time-stamped record of your position. She pauses. And if you decide to pursue legal remedies, she adds, this paper trail will matter. Legal remedies, lawyer, separation. Words I've been too tired and too scared to say out loud take shape in my mind like stepping stones. I let him make me feel stupid, I say, more to myself than to them. I let him talk me out of my instincts. Every time something felt off, I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just emotional. I look up, meeting Lynn's eyes. But my father saw this coming, didn't he? Not the details, but the possibility that I'd end up with someone who thought my safety net was negotiable. Lynn's expression softens, the professional cool cracked by something human. Some parents know their kids, she says quietly, and some parents know the world. I think of my dad again, him sighing when Marcus would talk too big at family cookouts, the way he'd pull me aside and say, just make sure you always have something that's yours, baby girl. Not ours, yours. Oh. He wasn't just being old-fashioned. He was planting a flag for me in a future I couldn't see yet. Can I get copies of those notes? I ask. The call logs, the part where he used my married name, the trust language, all of it. Absolutely, Lynn says. We'll prepare a packet for you before you leave, and if you retain an attorney, we can provide certified copies directly. She prints something and slides it across the desk. A fresh signature card, my name alone at the top. Sign here to acknowledge yourself as the active account holder for the beneficiary funds, she says. From this moment forward, any movement of that money requires your explicit consent and signature. No one else's. Not even as household representative. I take the pen. My hand doesn't shake anymore. I sign my name, my full name, with my father's last name, not Marcus's, like I'm carving a line in the ground. Tiana D. Ayers. In that moment, something shifts in my head. Marcus didn't throw me out because I was useless. He threw me out because he thought he'd drained everything he could from me and from my history. He believed he'd cut me off from his accounts, his roof, his version of security, and that I'd crawl back on his terms. He had no idea there was a whole structure my father had built that existed outside his reach. That every time he used my dad's name as a punchline, there was a line of legal text somewhere that said, in effect, not for you. He thought he'd kicked me to the curb with nothing. In reality, he'd just kicked me straight into the one place where he has zero power. My own inheritance. My own name. My own leverage. I slide the signed form back across the desk. Okay, I say, my voice steady now. Let's make sure my husband never touches a cent of what my father left me. And then, I'm going to make some calls of my own. By the time we finish the paperwork, the bank is closing. The teller with the braids walks me to the door like she's seeing someone off at an airport. Mr. Green hands me a slim folder, copies of the trust language, the call logs, my new account details, and a business card clipped to the front. If you decide to speak with an attorney, he says, this is someone we've worked with before on beneficiary disputes and marital financial abuse. He's very good at what he does. I look at the card. Malik Hernandez, SQ, Family and Financial Law. Thank you, I say, meaning more than just the card. For believing me, for protecting what my father did. That's our job, he says, then softer. And it's what your father clearly wanted. Outside, the rain has turned into a fine mist. The city looks different now. Same streetlights, same puddles, but I'm walking through it as someone who knows there's exactly $186,492.37 sitting in an account with her name on it, and a paper trail wrapped around it like barbed wire. Marcus doesn't know. He thinks I'm somewhere crying on a friend's couch, rehearsing my apology. Instead, I'm holding his worst surprise in a manila folder. I spend the night at a cheap motel near the freeway, the kind of place with loud ice machines and floral bedspreads that have seen things. I bolt the door, prop a chair under the handle anyway, and spread the folder out on the little round table. My father's handwriting is there, scanned into the system, his shaky signature under the trust addendum. My name printed cleanly next to beneficiary. The exact wording about spouses having no claim. The call logs with dates and times Marcus dialed, telling strangers I was too emotional and not good with money. I read every line until my eyes blur. Then I read them again. By midnight, the humiliation of being kicked out has been replaced by something sharper, colder. Not rage exactly. More like clarity. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't just lose his temper. He tried for months to get to my father's money. When he realized the bank wouldn't let him, he doubled down on controlling the one thing he could still move around freely. Me. That's not a fight I can fix with a heart-to-heart and a couple's retreat. That's a fight I need a lawyer for. I call the number on the card first thing the next morning, hands still smelling faintly of motel soap and burnt coffee. He picks up on the third ring. Hernandez Law, a man's voice says, steady, not rushed. Hi. I suddenly feel awkward, like I'm about to overreact in front of a professional. My name is Tiana Ayers. The branch manager at Commonwealth Bank gave me your card. He said you handle beneficiary issues and marriages that go bad around money. There's the tiniest pause. Then, if Daniel sent you, it's serious, he says. Can you come in this afternoon? Today? I squeak. Today is good when there are paper trails and angry husbands, he says, not unkindly. 2 o'clock? Yeah, I say. 2 o'clock. Bring everything the bank gave you, he says, and anything with your name and your husband's on it. Loans, credit cards, lines of credit, tax returns, anything. We'll sort the junk from the gold here. I hang up and stare at my phone. Angry husbands. He said it like it was a category. Like there's a file drawer somewhere labeled men who think everything is theirs. Fine. Let's put Marcus in that drawer. Malik's office is on the 8th floor of a mid-rise downtown. Not fancy, but intentional. Clean lines, big windows, a plant that isn't dying in the corner. The kind of place where details matter. He walks out to the waiting area to meet me himself. Early 40s, dark curls, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He offers me water, then sits across from me at a conference table already laid out with yellow legal pads. All right, Miss Ayers, he says. Tell me the story from the beginning. Don't worry about sounding dramatic. I'll trim the drama. You give me the facts. So I do. I tell him about the fight over the electric bill, the shove of the backpack into my hands, the words dead weight and I can cancel you like a bill, the years of him handling the money, the way mail would mysteriously go missing, how he'd make jokes about me being bad with overdrafts. Then I slide the bank folder over, and this, I say, is the part he doesn't know I know. He reads in silence, pen tapping once, twice, 3 times when he hits the notes about Marcus's calls. Unauthorized attempts, he murmurs, characterizing your inheritance as marital collateral, misrepresenting access to another bank. Huh. He looks up. How long have you been married? He asks. 3 years, I say. Any kids? No. He nods like some calculation just got easier. Do you want to stay married? He asks, straightforward. The question hits harder than any speech. For a second, I see our entire history. Laughing in crappy restaurants. Him showing up at the hospital when my father was dying. Holding me when I cried. The good versions of him. Then I see last night. The door closing. The trash bag feeling of my life being shoved into a backpack. The calm, cold way he said, "You are a bill I can cancel." And I see the call logs. The way he called my grief a weakness to a stranger in a headset, so he could sniff around for money. No, I hear myself say. I don't. Good, Malik says simply. That answers the big question. Now we figure out how to get you untangled without letting him blow up your finances on the way out. He flips his legal pad to a clean page and writes 3 words at the top in block letters. Protect, separate, expose. This is our order of operations, he says. Not revenge, not drama. protection, separation, then exposure if necessary. You follow that order, you stay in control. Something about the way he says it, calm, methodical, soothes a part of me that's been vibrating since last night. Step 1, he continues, protect the inheritance and your credit. Thanks to the bank, your father's account is already pretty well shielded. What we're going to do is add legal armor. He draws a little box around the word protect. I'm going to recommend we move the bulk of that money into a new trust structure in your name, he says. Different institution, different account numbers, different everything. We'll designate it as separate property tied directly to your father's death and the payout he received. That way, even if Marcus tries to get cute in divorce court and call it marital, we have documentation and timing on our side. Separate property, I repeat, the phrase tasting powerful and unfamiliar. Exactly, he says. Then we pull your credit report from all 3 bureaus and look for surprises. Any line of credit, card, or loan you don't recognize, we put a question mark next to. If he opened anything using your information alone, that moves us into potential identity theft territory. He glances at the banknotes again. Given what he tried with your father's funds, he says, I'd be shocked if he hasn't already tested that boundary. My stomach knots, but I nod. Okay, I say. What about separating? He flips to the next section. Step 2. Separate, he says. That's the legal and logistical side. We file for legal separation or divorce. Personally, I'd go straight for divorce. And we do it first. Not after a big showdown. Not after a we need to talk speech that gives him time to rearrange things. We let the paperwork be the first notification. You mean he finds out from an email? I ask. From a process server and an email, ideally, Malik says. At roughly the same time, he also gets notified that the bank has flagged his prior attempts to access your inheritance and that any further efforts may be treated as fraud. We schedule those dominoes carefully. There is something wickedly satisfying about the idea of Marcus opening his inbox and seeing my name not in a long text full of apologies, but at the top of a legal petition. And step 3, I ask? Expose? That's optional, Malik says. Step 3 is for if he tries to drag your name or your father's name through the mud, or if he refuses to back off financially. That's when we bring in the full paper trail, banknotes, call transcripts, credit reports, and make it very clear, to a judge if necessary, who has been responsible and who has been reckless. He leans back. Most men, like your husband, he says calmly, crumple somewhere between a frozen credit card and a judge using the word fraud in open court. They're bullies, not generals. They don't do well when someone else writes the rules. A laugh slips out of me, half nervous, half relieved. You talk about them like you've met a lot of Marcuses, I say. I have, he says. They come in here thinking the woman is going to beg to keep the house. They leave realizing the house was never really theirs to begin with. He taps the folder. In your case, the house is this inheritance, he says. Your father built it. Your husband tried to move in without a key. We're just locking the doors. We spend 2 hours going through everything. He prints my full credit reports and circles accounts I don't recognize. A store card I never opened. A promotional line of credit tied to some investment app Marcus loved. A small personal loan that lists me as co-borrower, even though I've never signed anything for it. That one, Malik says, tapping the loan. That's interesting. We'll get the original application. If your signature's forged or they can't produce it, that becomes leverage. He drafts a letter to the bank, thanking them for their diligence and formally putting them on notice that any future attempts by Marcus to access my beneficiary funds should be considered adverse to my interests. He writes another letter to be sent certified to Marcus's attention at our apartment. Notice that I have retained legal counsel and that any communication regarding finances or property should go through him. Then he pulls up a standard petition and begins filling in the blanks with my details, the dates, the words irretrievable breakdown that feel both clinical and accurate. At the very end, he pauses. Do you want to allege financial abuse in the filing, he asks, or keep that in our back pocket for now? We can always amend. I think about it, about all the times Marcus forgot to show me online statements, how he'd intercept mail and say, "It's just junk." The way he'd get angry if I so much as asked how much was on a credit card. How I'd feel like I was nagging, ungrateful, difficult, just for wanting to know. That's what it was, wasn't it? I say quietly, financial abuse. Yes, Malik says simply, control through money, shame through money, isolation through money. If you don't want it in the public record yet, we don't have to put it there. But between us, call it what it is. It'll make you less likely to excuse it. I nod, feeling something in my chest unclench. Put it in, I say. I'm done protecting his reputation. He smiles, just a little. Good, he says. That'll make step 3 easier if we get there. By the time we're finished, there are 3 neat stacks on the table. One with my new trust documents to sign. One with the divorce petition and financial abuse statement ready for filing. One with letters to the bank, to the loan company, to Marcus. Malik slides a pen across to me. Last question for today, he says. Do you want to wait to file until you've talked to him in person? Or do we proceed and let the paperwork speak first? I picture Marcus's face if I show up at the apartment building, asking to come in and talk. How quickly he'd turn it around. How he'd say I was overreacting, that I was throwing away a marriage over a technicality, that the money was for both of us anyway. How he'd loom in the doorway, using his height and the familiarity of our history to make me feel small again. I am so tired of feeling small. File first, I say. Let him talk to the paperwork. Done, Malik says. I sign. Each signature feels less like permission and more like a lock clicking into place. He doesn't call that day, or the next. He texts once, "Where are you? We need to talk." I don't answer. On day 3, the dominoes fall. The petition is filed that morning. The certified letters are delivered in the afternoon. The bank sends out their formal notice at close of business with exactly the language Malik suggested. Acknowledgement of his prior unauthorized attempts. Notice that the funds are beneficiary only and not marital. And a line stating that further attempts to misrepresent his access could trigger a fraud review. At 6:42 p.m., my phone lights up with his name. I let it ring out twice, breathing slow. On the 3rd call, I swipe to accept and hit speaker, like Malik told me to. "Tiana, what the hell is this?" he explodes, not even waiting for hello. I just got some insane email from the bank saying I've been blocked from beneficiary funds. And something from a lawyer, your lawyer, like you're filing for divorce? Are you out of your mind? His voice used to make my stomach flip in a good way. Now, it just makes me tired. "Hi, Marcus," I say calmly. "I see you got the messages." "What are you doing?" he demands. "You run to the bank, act crazy, and now they're treating me like some criminal? I was trying to manage things for us, for our future. And you?" He actually laughs. "You went and weaponized your broke daddy's pity money against me?" Once. That sentence would have cut me in half. Now it just confirms everything the call logs already told me. "You shouldn't say things like that on a recorded line," I say. He stops. "What?" "My attorney suggested I let you know," I say, keeping my tone neutral. "From now on, any communication about finances or our marriage should go through him. His information is in the email you got, along with the petition." "Tiana, listen to yourself," he scoffs. "You're not this person. You are not some ice queen with a lawyer. You're emotional. You're making a mistake. Just come home. We'll talk. We'll fix this." I am not coming back to an apartment where my name isn't on the lease and my mail goes missing. I say quietly. I'm not going back to accounts I don't control, and I am not apologizing for claiming money my father legally left for me when you've been trying to get your hands on it behind my back. He goes silent for a beat. I can hear his breathing, tight and angry. So, that's it? He finally says. You think you can just walk away with some lump sum and leave me holding all the bills? You think you're going to be okay out there on your own? You don't know how any of this works, Tiana. You need me. Once, I believed that. I believed I needed his credit score, his financial literacy, his spreadsheets. I thought I was the messy one and he was the grown-up. Now I have a banker, a compliance officer, and an attorney who have all told me the same thing with different words. He's the liability, not me. I don't need a man who sees my inheritance as collateral, I say, or calls the bank to see if there's another way to get to what my father left me. Check your email again, Marcus. The bank was very clear. So was the petition. You're going to regret this, he snaps. Maybe, I say, but at least if I regret it, it will be my decision, made with my eyes open and my own name on the paperwork. There's a clatter, like he's knocked something off a table. You're ungrateful, he hisses, after everything I've done for you. That's enough, I say. Any further threats or questions, talk to Malik. His number's in your inbox. And for the first time in our marriage, I hang up on him. I stare at the phone for a long moment, waiting for the familiar rush of guilt. It doesn't come. Instead, there's just quiet. Not the scary kind. The kind that feels like space. Space to think. Space to build. A different kind of payback. Not the screaming match he's expecting, but a slow, meticulous removal of every lever he used to pull. He wanted control. He gets a lawyer instead. The weeks after that phone call don't feel like a movie. They feel like spreadsheets, signatures, and a lot of nights staring at ceilings in rooms that aren't mine yet. The first big change isn't glamorous at all. It's an email from Malik with a subject line that just says approved. Inside, confirmation that the new trust is live. That my father's money has been moved into an account Marcus doesn't know about at a completely different institution, wrapped up in more legal language than I can pronounce. Think of it like a fireproof safe with your father's name welded on the front, Malik explains when we meet to finalize it. You have the only key. Not you and your husband, not you and your future maybe someone, you, period. There's a transfer receipt with a new balance. Same digits. New home. I take a screenshot and save it under a boring folder name on my phone. Then I delete the email from my inbox and resave it in a secure drive Malik helped me set up. Old me would have forwarded it to Marcus with a message like, "See, we're safe now." New me doesn't forward anything. The second big change comes in the form of a lease. I find a one-bedroom condo about 20 minutes from downtown. It's not the high-rise with the view Marcus loved to brag about, but it has 3 things I care about more. My name on the lease, a deadbolt only I have the key to, and a small built-in desk by a window that looks out over a row of stubborn little trees. When the landlord hands me the paperwork, my hand hesitates for just a second. Some old part of me still half expects to hear, "We'll need your husband to co-sign." He doesn't say that. He just points where to sign. So I do. Tiana D. Ayers. My pen makes a small groove in the paper. I stand there, staring at the black ink, feeling suddenly, stupidly emotional about it. The landlord misreads my silence. "Congratulations," he says, smiling. "First place on your own?" "First place that's actually mine," I say. He nods. "That's the best kind." I move in with 3 suitcases, 1 thrift store couch, and a cheap set of plates in a color my mother would hate. I buy them anyway. For once, no one is in my ear saying, "That doesn't match the aesthetic," or "Be practical, we should get the more neutral ones." If I want mustard yellow dishes and a lopsided mug that says, "World's okayest human," That's between me and my shelf space. The temptation to go wild with the money is there. I won't lie. There are moments scrolling online where I picture myself in a new car, in flights to islands Marcus used to dangle like carrots. Once we close this deal, I'll take you somewhere nice, he'd say, like I was a dog who needed a treat for staying quiet. Now I could just book those flights myself. But every time my father's handwriting flashes in my head next to those trust words, for my daughter and for no one else. He didn't leave me a revenge budget. He left me a second chance. So we make a plan. Me and Malik and a financial planner he recommends who actually looks at me when she talks, instead of over my head like Marcus used to. We sit at another conference table with a notepad between us. What do you want this money to do? She asks. Not in fantasy terms, in practical ones. If your father were sitting right here, what would you be proud to tell him you did with it? I stare at the blank page. I want a foundation, I say slowly. I want to never be in a position, again, where someone can lock me out of a home I paid half the rent on and leave me with $17 in my wallet. Okay, she says, writing foundation at the top. So, safety, independence, what else? I think of the way my father used to talk about someday when he was in a good mood. How he'd say, someday I'll have my own little crew, my own van, my own logo on the side. I'll pick my jobs instead of taking what's left. I want to build something, I say. He always wanted to have his own small business, but life kept getting in the way. I have more education than he ever did. I could actually do it. I don't know if it's exactly his dream, but something in that lane. Logistics, admin, making chaos run on time. That's what I'm good at. She writes build something underneath. Then that's what this money is, she says. Not a shopping spree. Seed capital. A safety net and a launch pad. We map it out. A chunk to pay off every piece of debt with my name on it that makes sense to kill now. A chunk into an emergency fund. Real emergency this time. Not my husband maxed out a card and calls it strategy. A chunk into conservative investments in a new trust, boring on purpose, as she puts it. And a carefully measured amount earmarked for education and business. A certification I've always wanted but couldn't afford, software, a small website, maybe a consultant down the line. I walk out of that meeting without a single luxury handbag, but with something better. A plan where my father's money isn't my entire future, just the solid floor under it. Mediation with Marcus comes 6 weeks later. By then, the initial explosions have died down. He tried the usual tactics first. Angry texts, guilt trips, love bombing. When those didn't work, he switched to long emails about the value of marriage and not throwing away years together. I answered exactly 2 of them with the same line. Please direct any questions about the divorce to my attorney. He hates that. So when he walks into the mediation room, he's already simmering. I almost don't recognize him at first. Not because he looks different. Same pressed shirt, same cologne. But because for the first time, he doesn't have the advantage. He doesn't know what I'm thinking. He doesn't know where the inheritance is. He doesn't know what my credit report looks like now. All he knows is that his usual tricks didn't work. I'm already seated with Malik when Marcus comes in with his lawyer. I stand, polite, not deferential, and sit back down when everyone's arranged. The mediator, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and zero patience for nonsense, starts with the standard speech about compromise and civility. Marcus fidgets the whole time. When it's his turn to speak, he launches into a performance. I just want what's fair, he says, hands spread. We built a life together. I gave her stability when she had none. I took care of everything. Now all of a sudden, she's acting like I'm some con artist because of a misunderstanding with her dad's account. I was trying to help. That's what husbands do. I watch him, the same way I watched Malik at our first meeting. In the past, I would have been flushing with shame by now, wanting to jump in and smooth it over. He's not all bad, I would have said. He's just stressed. Now I let him talk. When he's done, Malik slides a folder to the center of the table, like it's nothing more than a menu. "With respect," he says calmly, "this was not a misunderstanding." He pulls out copies of the bank's call logs, laying them neatly in front of the mediator and Marcus's lawyer. "On these dates," he says, tapping the pages, "Mr. Carter called the bank and characterized Ms. Ayers' beneficiary-only inheritance as marital assets and collateral, despite being told explicitly that the funds were not his to access. He then represented those funds as part of his net worth to another institution." The mediator adjusts her glasses, reading. Marcus shifts in his chair. That's not how it happened," he says quickly. "I was just gathering information." "The bank's exaggerating," Malik says. "We also have records," he continues, "of mail regarding this inheritance being sent to their shared address and never acknowledged by Ms. Ayers. Call it coincidence if you like, but when you place it next to his attempts to access the funds and his admission tonight that he handled everything, it paints a very clear picture of financial control and attempted misappropriation." He says it without venom. That almost makes it worse. The mediator's mouth tightens. "Mr. Carter," she says slowly, "did you or did you not ask the bank for ways to access your wife's inheritance without her present?" He opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. "I was trying to get us a line of credit," he finally mutters. "For us. For investments. I was going to tell her once it was approved." "That's not how it works," the mediator says. "Not legally. Not ethically." She looks at me. "Miss Ayers," she says, "is your goal here to seek any spousal support? Or are you primarily concerned with protecting your separate property and disentangling your finances?" I take a breath. This is the moment he's been dreading and hoping for at the same time. Dreading that I'll take what I'm owed, hoping I'll cling to him anyway. "I don't want his money," I say. "I want him out of mine. I want my name off anything he's using as a toy. I want my credit clean, my father's inheritance protected, and my life back." Silence. Marcus stares at me like he doesn't know who I am. Because the version of me he trained himself to see would have been crying by now, looking at him for cues, waiting to see how angry he'd be before speaking. This version looks at the mediator instead. After that, the negotiation shifts. Suddenly, it's not about whether I deserve to keep what my father left me. That's off the table. It's about how quickly we can cut the remaining ties, removing my name from that shady loan, closing the joint account, establishing that anything he does after this date is his liability alone. He tries to pull me back into the old dance a few times. "Remember who bought you that car?" he says at one point under his breath. I think of the payment history Malik showed me the night before, half those payments coming from my direct deposits. I remember who drove it to the bank to try to get my father's money. I answer softly, not taking the bait. The mediator hides a smile behind her papers. By the end of the session, we have a draft agreement. I walk out of that building feeling like I've run a marathon, made entirely of signatures and swallowed anger. But I also walk out with something I've never had before, a clean line between his life and mine. I don't launch a business the next day. Google might make it look like that's how it works, but in real life, it starts smaller. I enroll in a project management certification course my old boss talked about years ago. The fee comes out of the build something bucket we set aside, and I pay for it with my own card linked to my own account. No explanations. No, "Is this okay, babe?" email. In the evenings, I build a basic website on my thrift store couch, my laptop balanced on my knees. A simple name, a simple promise. Systems and scheduling for small tradespeople who are drowning in their own paperwork. Plumbers, electricians, handymen, the kind of people my dad used to work alongside. I know their world. I know their chaos. I know exactly what my father would have paid good money for. Someone to answer the phone when he was on a ladder. Someone to send the invoices he kept forgetting to send. Someone to tell him, "You made this much this month, and here's how to make next month easier." So that's what I start building. My first client is the cousin of the motel manager who overheard me taking a call one day and asked, "You good with spreadsheets?" My second client is one of my dad's old coworkers who still had my number in his phone. It's not glamorous. It is honest. I sit at that little built-in desk by the window, color-coding appointment slots and contractor routes, and feel something click. This is what my father wanted. Not necessarily this exact business, but this level of control over his own life. And now his daughter has it. Not because someone handed it to me, but because he quietly built a bridge and I finally walked across it. The old card, the navy one with his name in faded letters, sits in the back of my new wallet for a while. I know it doesn't work anymore. We closed it the same night I walked into the bank, soaked in rain and fear. It's just plastic now, but it still feels like a relic. One Saturday morning, months after that first stormy walk, I take it out and hold it between my fingers. The numbers are almost rubbed smooth in one place where my thumb has passed 1,000 times. "Thank you," I tell it softly, knowing I'm really talking to the man who once stood under these same fluorescent lights and said, "It's for my girl." Then I get a pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer. I hesitate for half a second, not out of attachment, but out of respect. Then I cut straight through the chip. The pieces fall into the trash with a sound that's quieter than it feels. In its place, I slide back the card I use now. Monty card, my name, linked to accounts no one else has access to. Later that day, I stand in the doorway of my condo, looking at the little place I've started to fill with my own choices. The 2 bright dishes, the plant that's only slightly dying, the laptop open on a scheduling board for 3 clients who write my name on checks and transfers. I think of the girl standing in a hallway months ago, rain in her hair, backpack cutting into her shoulder, clutching a dead man's debit card like a lucky charm. I think of the woman sitting here now, with a different kind of weight on her shoulders. Responsibility, yes, but hers? Chosen. There's still a long road ahead. More mediations, more paperwork, more nights where the future feels a little too big. But one thing is crystal clear. The man who closed a door on me, thinking he was canceling a bill, didn't realize he was just removing himself from the balance sheet. He walked away with a lease in his name and a story where he's the hero of his own financial fantasy. I walked away with something he can't measure. A father's last line of defense. A lawyer who knew exactly how to turn that into leverage. A bank that finally had my back. And a life I am slowly, deliberately designing so that no one ever gets to slam a door on me like that again. Thrown out with a backpack and a plastic relic, I walked into a bank thinking I might find $20 and a little dignity. What I actually found was a blueprint. And this time, I'm the architect.